Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the NextGen GTM podcast. Today, I am talking with Louis Holzman. Now, Louis is the Director of Business Development for Altitude Marketing. And he has had the awesome experience of 6xing revenue, but he's done it in a really unique way because he travels all the time. So Louis has been able to deliver fantastic revenue results from literally all over the world. I think he's averaging like 10 to 22 flights a year, which means he's always on the go. But he has a super unique experience because he's able to use that to connect with his customers and his people and have great experiences along the way. Not only that, as part of Altitude Marketing, he and his team have really started digging into how folks can differentiate their go-to-market motions using new tech. So we're super excited to have Louis here today. Louis, welcome. Thank you for coming and talking with us.
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. Really appreciate the time here and you having me on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Louis, you, like I said, you are hands-on with your customers all day long. You're working with them on how to deliver their own revenue results. So kind of cool where you get to eat what you cook. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing with folks right now. Like, what challenges are your customers facing and how are those challenges different than maybe they might have been 6 months ago?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a great question. Challenges with clients and customers, differ across industry for sure, but really over the past 6 months, a lot of the same questions are starting to pop up. And of course, a good bunch of them are around AI, because, that is in every industry and certainly marketing is no different. But then also about how do they get the most out of their dollar, right? The economy right now is a little bit different, not just 6 months ago, but then it was in 2022, for example. And so really looking down from a budgeting standpoint to every single line item at each department, from leadership down to through management that's helping to develop those, really being able to track back return on investment and attributable, marketing dollars is critical. And so that's something that we're able to really help our clients push through. And certainly AI and digital plays a big part in that, and being able to bring that attribution forward and have these different tools and whatnot being connected. But those are some common threads that, regardless of industry, regardless of who we're talking to, those are some questions that are being brought up, or if it's not questions, it is just areas of importance that they want to focus on.
100%. And it's really interesting, right? Because, a lot of folks, you kind of honed in on like, hey, we're trying to operate efficiently. We're trying to bring in new levels of attribution and clarity. How are you seeing, like I said, what are the gaps, right? Like, hey, we want better attribution, but what do you see the common gaps being where you're seeing folks, they want these things, they want, the high efficiency, they want the results. Where are you seeing the gaps in their ability to get that?
Sure. Yeah. Gaps in ability to really push attribution forward from a marketing standpoint, or even just have a connected and holistic digital sales funnel. Sometimes that's even a challenge. And those gaps some of them are people and manual oriented, and other of them are digital and technology. And so from a digital technology standpoint, you have your website, you have your analytics, you have your CRM, marketing automation, all of those different components. If they're not talking, or integrated appropriately together, it's not going to be able to give you the insights or the data at hand that you really need, or in any quick fashion or real-time use fashion, let alone an executive summary for somebody that might not be in those weeds every single day. And so to be able to really use data to fuel the decisions in your business, having that digital sales funnel that is really mapped out, that's pushing from, where, a marketing effort initially happens, a campaign goes live, to what those results turn and generate from marketing qualified lead to sales qualified lead to, a sales accepted lead that your sales team might run on. And then how does that flip into the revenue side, where it's a good opportunity and you might be generating a proposal and looking at that from a real revenue standpoint, and then hopefully closing that business and being able to tie back X amount of dollars of closed won business to said, initial marketing campaign or marketing effort, or even manual efforts and manual labor of the marketer. We all are, at the end of the day, have some level of dollar attached to what we do, whether you're an internal marketing staff or you're working with an agency. That time is money. And so you're able to track that back and really build out what is that, dollar to dollar ratio of your return. And that's really powerful. It's incredibly powerful for clients to know that. But it also allows them to see how they're utilizing marketing and some tools in today's digital age that connects all of those different analytics and really helps even automate and streamline and make efficiencies within tasks to be really much more effective and drive that return on investment for their business.
And when you see like that, you talked about the digital funnel, right? And obviously you guys have posted a lot about what Amplitude is doing to bring in new technologies. What are you seeing in the digital funnel that you're saying is maybe the same as it was? You're still seeing like, hey, we got to stick to the fundamentals. And what are you seeing has changed in terms of like raw execution of these funnels?
Sure. 5 years ago, we didn't have the level of depth of insights, let alone connectivity that we do between all these different platforms. Even something as basic as Zapier, that is using as a connecting integration between a lot of different platforms, 2,000 plus platforms, that you don't need a custom code or script or APIs just to be able to connect in and push in and pull out. And so that was coming out as something kind of new 5 years ago. Now that's really kind of industry standard. Like, you have to be doing those things and you should be doing those things. And now as we look forward, not only just integrating from a marketing, like pure marketing campaign standpoint and digital sales funnel standpoint, but there's also levels of automation and task management that we're able to bring forward that makes us as humans more efficient in the marketing work that we do. So something that we're really proud of at Altitude, and it's something that we've been able to build over time, is in about a given month, we're saving about the enough time or the rough time of 2 to 3 full-time employees through automating roughly 40,000 tasks a month that helps streamline our just general processes. And these tasks are not anything mind-blowing or super crazy, but it's data entry, manual process, copy paste type of things for across of our client base and across our own efforts that really speak to somewhere around 40,000 of those automated tasks on over the course of a month, which that adds up. And when you start to talk about time, as a human, and that going into your attribution and being able to look at return on investment, and that time certainly adds up. And when you're talking it adding up to 2, maybe 3 full-time employees, that's a significant cost savings that we have, within our internal process, but then we're passing on to our clients there as well. So that's just kind of something that is certainly, critical on the internal process, I guess. But then when you look at, external within clients, something new like just happened, Google and their March algorithm update really changed the game. And it really goes back to looking at AI and how AI in search and how algorithms within search are really reading and feeding us information in order to still get the best results, but ultimately not really have us leave that page, that first landing page that we jump on, trying not to click through if we don't have to. Google wants to keep us on their page and keep consuming their information and allowing them to keep serving us ads. And it's a whole messy yarn ball, if you will, that I frankly won't get totally into. But it is pretty incredible what that's doing and what people are looking at from an SEO standpoint, search engine optimization. A lot of what we have now moved to is what we're calling GEO, and that's generative engine optimization, right? Because the generative AI is such a big component of our life. ChatGPT is a very simple and kind of standard use of that at this moment, but the generative searches and the generative content is now all over the web. algorithms are updating and shifting to be able to, counter that or to account for that. So we as humans still receive those best results, but we're also, again, consuming the right user's journey and buyer's journey that Google and those algorithms really want us to be served at.
Fascinating. So a few things you poked at there, which I think are broadly applicable. The first one, 40,000 tasks automated. I feel like it wasn't that long ago where just automating a task,
Sure,
right? Like a lot, right? So we're talking massive scale of task automation that maybe we haven't seen that size and speed of task automation yet. And then I think, you said like that adds up, right? And I think it's really, really interesting because, we see the same thing, right? We see that there are a significant number of tasks that do not require your AI to, have a 90-minute conversation as if it were a human.
sure.
But they are taking literal hours off on your team's plate, and they're actually losing you deals, right? They're losing revenue, right? And I think that's an interesting thing. I don't know if you see this. We see this a lot. Everybody, likes productivity. It makes everybody feel happy. We know that we're paying for it, but we can't really see those numbers, or maybe we can't get those savings right away. I think what people often forget, though, is some of those tasks that people are doing, when they don't do them, still also lose us revenue, right? Because it's one of those things where it's not just a waste of time. It's not just a pain in the butt. It's actually causing your customer experience to be slower or to be broken. And with that, you're not just losing an inconvenience of time, you're losing a deal. Curious, like, is that part of when you guys go to measure that ROI? It's time and performance, right? I'd imagine they're both there.
Yeah, it's time, it's performance. Yeah, it's both of those for sure. Time, performance. The other area of that triangle, I guess, would be quality. Kind of wraps into both of those things. But yeah, no, it's something that you can't rush, right? And that's something else that a lot of people are looking for, like get things done fast. Speed is, time is money in a way, and certainly everyone wants things to be done yesterday. But also, if you don't have some of that infrastructure set up, then you got to do that first before you go out and just start throwing things against the wall. And that's something that sometimes is a challenge for clients to really, grab a hold of, and can create a barrier to even starting to work together. Or if we are working together, or do start to work together, does have things to be a little choppy or a little bit of a disconnect, because we kind of are a little bit of insistent to go through that initial process, because at the end of the day, we're looking for long-term partners that are going to see success. Helping them grow ultimately is how our business grows. And so we want to set them up so they have that funnel, that attributable pipeline, so that they're able to really look back and call back to ROI. So we're able to point to that within our efforts. But if you don't have that set up, it's hard to do that. And then, you kind of are back into 2011 to 2017, 2018, where it's like, I think this worked. Did we do that? Yeah, you did that. Like, and it's a little bit more of a gut and a relationship, which is still building a relationship either way. But it's, people like to read data. They want to see what's working. They want to understand how that's affecting their bottom line, or how it's making their job better, or how it's improving, the outlook of their job to their boss, whatever that might be. So, people, process, product, pricing. It's like nothing that's new in that way, but definitely all of those go into consideration when we're building out. Initially, it's like a big math equation, honestly, being able to understand what's the baseline, whether that's website traffic, whether it's form fill outs, whether it is SQLs, whether it is, total, pipeline numbers, revenue, whatever those numbers are. We're figuring out what that baseline is now. What are the goals, the business goals that they're trying to get to over the course of the year, maybe the next 6 months? And then how do we, really need to build out our marketing efforts. And again, that math equation to start increasing numbers so that we can dwindle down, initial leads to MQLs to SQLs and so on and so forth to hit those business goal numbers.
I think baseline is so underrated and under talked about, right? Like, it's like, I can't tell you, having run maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of digital media campaigns over the last decade, right? It's an honest mistake that so many teams make, right? You're so excited, you're ready to go, you have what you need, it's going to change the world, and someone forgets to calculate the base, or someone forgets to set up they might forget to set up the null set or the group of customers that don't see the advertising, right? That you can A/B compare them on. And it's funny. Like, I feel like you make that mistake enough times, and then, as a marketer, you get into it and you're like, okay, here's what we're testing. What is the control? Like, it's what's the baseline? What's the control? Like, and it's so hard because controls are not sexy. Baselines are not sexy. They're not fun. They're not actually showing anything. But if you don't set them and then you do get a win and you don't know how the win came about, like, it's almost just as bad as when you started. And so I love that you pointed that out. The other thing that you pointed out, which I thought was really interesting and is very, very true, is, we talk a lot about stack. We talk about, okay, cool, what's your CRM? Are you doing outbound? Are you doing inbound? How are we thinking about that? The one that is 100%, I think, on the scene now and is not talked about as much as it's used is Zapier, right? Like, is really, and so many people, like, when you talk to them, you're like, are you using it? And you can tell they're like, yes, right? Because they know it's super powerful, right? They understand, right? But it's almost like the world is your oyster, so you're not exactly sure it's like. You can do everything, so then you're not positive what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because we are stepping into, from a tech standpoint, a lot of people have said, right, yes, LLMs are a big part of this, but it is going to become an API first technical economy, right?
Sure.
Where the ability of these platforms to talk and be triggered and be able to move across, like, that's what gives you the next step into agentive AI. And so I'm curious, when you guys use Zaps or Zapier or Zapier, I got to work on it.
I think it's Zapier. Yeah.
Zapier. I think it's different in different countries. We should get if someone
I've heard it's happy, just like Happier. It's like Zapier.
Oh, guys, anyone listening to this, let's pause. Just like Happier, it's Zapier.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I'm not,
No, I think that might be the most important takeaway of this entire discussion. So, but question for you: top 5 Zaps, top 10, like, go as deep as you can. What are the ones that people need to have? Like, again, the smart thing to do is hire folks like you to have everybody wired up. But let's say you just want to DIY it. You're going to sit in your room for an entire day. You're never going to leave. What are the 10 that you're like, yeah, these are the ones?
Yeah, that's tough because everyone's marketing technology stack is different. And so the 2,000 plus apps that you're tying in together is probably going to be a little bit different, right? So I'll keep it broad-based here first and then be able to drill down into specifically what we're using and then even what we use for some of our clients. At Altitude, we are technology agnostic when it comes to marketing tech. So we have some of our favorites for sure, but usually as long as the system is fairly reputable, we can make it push and pull what we need it to do for our clients. And certainly if not, we'll make recommendations accordingly. But at the very least, and I think I said this a little bit earlier, particularly when you're just starting to build this attribution funnel, you really want to have your website obviously be something that is key, have it fast, performing well, technically sound. It can look really pretty, but it also can perform terribly, right? So that is probably equally, that's not a Zap thing. That is just a modern web standards, looking at expertise, authority, and trust, experience, those things really bolting together both in a content and a technical standpoint, allowing your website to be super fast. Things like GA4 or maybe Mathemo Analytics if you're in Europe, something that you're really wanting to tie in and make sure that's set up appropriately. We use GA4 and usually tie that in through Google Tag Manager that we're building that out through. even then, down through things like making it super accessible and using a platform like Accessibility that may be helpful to be able to bring that forward. From the website there, you have marketing automation, you have your form engine. So maybe you're in a platform like HubSpot or Marketo or Marketing Sales Cloud, aka used to be Pardot. Or maybe you're in something, not as robust like MailChimp or Constant Contact or a middle ground like ActiveCampaign. And so really making sure that those forms are tied into those engines appropriately, styled appropriately to match that brand. Sometimes there's direct APIs and integrations. Other times that is a Zap. Usually at a form level, it is a direct integration or a direct tie-in of some sort. But then going from there, you're looking then into CRM. Maybe your marketing automation is also your CRM, which these days that's most common, especially in those platforms that I just talked about. But the Constant Contacts, the MailChimps might not be. It might be a different CRM that someone's using. And frankly, at that level, someone using that type of system, they might be using spreadsheets still. And so that certainly, if you're in spreadsheet world still, and I'll rather than Excel, I'll call out Google and Google Sheets here, that's a little bit more of a cloud platform and able to push in and pull in from a Zap standpoint. So you're then, pushing that data over there. But then I think equally as important there is, what do you do with all this data now that it's connected? Can you look deep dive into Google Analytics and GA4? Can be a little bit confusing. I don't know if there's any specific absolute 100% expert in GA4, especially as Universal Analytics changed up. There's a lot of different changes in the platform, and so being able to then look a little bit deeper at those analytics, tying it into some type of data visualization, right? And that on a Google side, that's Looker Studio. We at Altitude use a tool called DataBox. But the big ones are like Tableau and things like that you'll be able to go and really tie all of that data that's pulling in from that digital sales funnel and making it actionable. Building out your lead pipeline. What does that look like? What are your lead numbers, your total amounts of leads, all the way down to the ones that your sales team accepts and everything in between? And what's the attrition that goes from each of those stages? You can kind of count through and see what's working, what's not, where are they coming from? What is it organic? Is it paid channels? Is it referrals? What pages on the website are performing the best? Keywords, all different types of stuff that you're able to track. And for our clients, we're building those dashboards out and they have access to them 24/7, 365. We use that internally ourselves in the same manner, because then that pushes into kind of the next stage of the funnel, your pipeline, to be able to look at those deal stages from initial opportunity to maybe proposal out to negotiation, however you may have that work through. And so whether it's Zaps or it's APIs themselves, that's usually how a lot of that is connected. And so ensuring that is connected appropriately is critical, because then you have that data at your fingertips, and the benchmarking that we had talked about and pretty much everything leading up to this point in the conversation is kind of a moot point if you don't have those things, if you don't have those areas connected, and if you don't have someone kind of paying attention to it, because it's not a set it up and they will come. It's a set it up and it's probably pretty good, but it's still a living, breathing thing, not just your data visualization platform, but that whole digital sales funnel, certainly your website. It's constantly being modified and maneuvered, and new pages are added and all different types of things like that. So I'll kind of pause there and see if that answered the question, or you want me to dive a little bit deeper.
No, I mean, I think it does, right? I think, to pull out a few things for folks, you mentioned there's direct integration and there's Excel spreadsheets with Zapier, right? Like, yeah. And we see the same thing, when we tell folks, think of Zapier as the glue, right? When you need to know, like, hey, what happens when I push this data into this place or activate this workflow? Is it going to work? It's a great way to glue stuff together quick, to try stuff, to get new, right? But then you mentioned that second piece, which is once we've really got that, the best thing next is probably a direct integration, and making sure that those systems are actually fully tied. 100%, we see that. And for what it's worth, we tend to find that our favorite Zapier tools have been, we do like to use platforms that help us understand our website traffic and push that contact information into the right place, either into, either our CRM or potentially some of our outreach, platforms, right? So we know this action, and now we're able to sync them into a specific nurture campaign. That's one that we love to do. We love to make sure, like even things like maybe when they come out of a certain point in our sales pipeline, we're using Zapier to push them the right information. Again, once we know that works, what we do is, right, we galvanize that a little bit more intentionally, right? Maybe through some more direct. And then obviously, we use Zapier to kick off our own AI agents that are able to go know. And I think that's the really important thing that folks need to see coming. Like if you think what, Louis just talked about was complicated, it's because it is. But it's required, right? It's both complicated and required, because what happens is if you don't do it, you're pouring water down pipes that just fundamentally aren't connected, and you're not able to get the human insight out of it. And I think that's what's really interesting about AI's ability to look at all these variables, to identify where is the gap, to at least service up the summarized insights in a way that allows the human to come on top and say, okay, I think I now have something to think about this or to say about this. And then similarly, the AI's ability to take triggers and actually go do stuff in a predictable fashion. Like, to me, that is where we're seeing businesses win, because they are spending a lot of time, and it is true, a lot of time on these setups. But the reason they do it, right, is because once it is set up, you have that leverage, right? Of like, now I know that when I sleep, if these things happen, it will kick off these things. And then we can kind of almost get that time and energy and effort back. So I think that's the key, right? Is anytime you hear someone like Louis talking about how difficult this is and how robust and detailed it is, you have to remember the goal is we're going to spend time, we're going to get this machine right, and then we're going to go take a nap. Not really, right? No,
and it's something that you continue to modify too. Again, it's not a set it and forget it. It will continue to evolve. But once you have that infrastructure in place, there's new tools, there's new things. There's always going to be new, like shiny new objects. But making sure that, at least have that, again, going back to the baseline to be able to set up and build out. Now you can make those modifications a lot quicker, easier adjustments, because you have that infrastructure. And I guess the other point that I'll make, quickly here is just, it might sound technical and complicated, and it certainly is in its own ways, but it's no longer like needing to be a developer writing lines and lines of code to be able to do these things. Like, now you can have some level of technical or automation background, or even not, but just be curious and want to dive in and like learn. You're able to go and use a platform like Zapier that's pretty user friendly and intuitive, and it's really a, if this happens, then what type of situation, and you select those components and you integrate things. And I don't want to totally oversimplify it, but you just don't need to be that technical code jockey, if you will, that you needed to be 5, certainly 10, definitely 20 years ago in order to make some of these things happen. And that's the same thing with some of the AI tools. Like, we're using tons of custom GPTs, and we have different GPTs that are writing scripts that some of us aren't developers, but we're writing scripts in order to achieve something, to automate something that it spits out like that we wouldn't know how to do inherently just ourselves. So that's definitely some benefits that does come forward in a technical sense, but it's not a development technical ability like it used to be.
I love it. And I love how you kind of pull it all down of like, guys, this can get forever complicated, which is why you get the altitude guys in. But it can also be something that you learn about, figure out, try to start, small, and then grow from there. So, okay, this has been awesome. We always ask people, same thing, towards the end of every conversation. If someone's listening to this and you have 3 things that you think they should go do to step change what they're doing today, what is your kind of, leave this conversation and do these 3 things? What would that be for you?
3 things. First, get a handle on what your pipeline looks like. And if you don't have analytics, or you don't have data visualization, whatever stage you might or might not be in, whether it's totally, early stage from scratch or semi-sophisticated, just being able to fine tune that and making sure that you have that type of visualization and that type of data at your fingertips. I think that's first and foremost the most important thing, because that's going to help fuel your business decisions and really allow you to be, successful in the coming years. Two, put it back to the people standpoint. Make sure you're having the right people in place and in the right seats that are hungry and excited. And particularly when you start talking about AI or new tools and technology, that want to learn, that are on the cutting edge, that are grasping onto new concepts and things that will allow you and your company to move forward, because not everyone in your company is going to be the innovator, right? And so, but you need that one or two or three or four people or department, whatever it might be, to really help grab those things down, digest them, internalize them, make them actionable and real and make sense for everybody else. So finding those people that you can have in your organization that really thrive in those kind of unknown new areas is definitely key and critical. And the last thing, honestly, and this might come off, I don't hope it doesn't come off crass, but like break shit, like there's so much forgiveness in the technology that we have, in the ability to go do something, it not work, go back, see where it malfunctioned essentially, and go redo it again, because you're not writing hundreds of lines of code and then having to look through and be like, oh shit, where did I make that mistake? Like, you're just go and make it happen and push it out there. And if it didn't work, like trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, because probably like your first version of it might give you like your aha moment, but it's not going to be where you're at. Like where we're at now as Altitude with our own internal systems. I've been working on this stuff for like 6 years. And our initial version of it with my, one of my interns, 6 years ago is totally different than where we are right now. But we had to start there. We had to start making that happen and putting those things in place in order to get to where we are. And some of that is data cleanliness. It's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not great. But if you're going through your CRM and you don't have things tagged appropriately, if you don't have things segmented appropriately, then anything that you're doing with that data is going to be trash. So that's a critical piece to all of that as well.
And it reminds me of, so Sam Altman, right, CEO of OpenAI, said in one of his most recent interviews, guys, the tech is the worst today that it's ever going to be. Right? Like your point about like, hey, getting in there, break a few things. It's the worst it's ever going to be. Like every day it's going to get better. And all the people that have laid this groundwork and have it kind of planned out of like, okay, maybe I see like, oh, I've reached the edge of what this is capable of. That's the edge today. 3 weeks from now, it knows how to do it. And you've already made the plan for what that's going to look like. So I think that's a super awesome way to leave it. Liz, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Learned
Absolutely.
a lot. Appreciate having you.
Yeah, thanks for your time and thanks for having me on the show today. Enjoy your day, Maddie.